Awesome. All right, well, have a seat, man. So, I don't know, the ukulele has been kind of a big story in our industry the last few years. And I don't know, I kind of think you just probably convinced about 2,000 people to pick it up. And I suspect maybe that's kind of what's been happening all along. How did this get started? And we've been doing Breakfast of Champions, I think, about 10 years now. And that was about 10 years ago. This video you talked about came out on YouTube. How'd that happen?
I happened to be in New York doing a show. That was actually my first time to New York City, and there was a little local TV show there called Ukulele Disco, and they wanted to interview me.
Well, heard of it, of course. Sure. Yeah.
And so they wanted to interview me. They interviewed me in Central Park. They asked me a few questions and had me play a song. And at the time, I was just I was working up that George Harrison arrangement, and so I thought, oh, I'll play it. You know, I'll play it for the show. And I ended up playing that, and it aired on television. Just a little, local program. And then that was around the time when YouTube just started out. So someone took the clip off of that TV show and put it on YouTube, and that's how it all started.
Millions, someone started calling and saying, hey dude, I saw you on the internet. Well, so let's go back even further. How do you start playing ukulele? Is this something you picked up by yourself or at home? Or?
Well, I was born and raised in Hawaii, and my mom, she played, and she just knew like 4 or 5 chords. But growing up in Hawaii, the ukulele is it's a big part of the culture, so it's a very serious instrument, and we even learn it in 4th and 5th grade. We learn how to play the ukulele along with the recorder. And my mom played, so she played for me all the time. And when I was about 4 years old, she finally let me play her ukulele. She had an old Kamaka, which was a very expensive ukulele, so she didn't want me playing it, but I begged her, and finally she would let me play it, and taught me a few chords, and I just fell in love with the instrument, because as a child, as a 4-year-old, it's such a tiny instrument, so it's easy for a little child to get their fingers around, the body of the instrument, and because the strings are nylon, it's very soft on the fingers. So there's no pain, when you're learning the instrument, and you can play a lot of chords with just one finger. So you can immediately start playing songs, from the like 2nd or 3rd minute that you pick it up. So I think it was that because it was very encouraging, because I could play right away, and that's what kind of kept me going.
Did you know you wanted to be a musician, or what would the traditional route of a musician is to, I guess, go work in a music store?
Well, I never thought that I'd be a musician, because growing up in Hawaii, there's so many great ukulele players. I mean, I grew up listening to people like Eddie Kamai and Otasan and Peter Moon, and they're just legends in Hawaii. I'm sure all of you know Iz from his Over the Rainbow. I grew up listening to their music, and I just never, I'm a horrible singer, so I just thought, man, I'm never going to make it as a musician. So I remember right after high school, well, actually it was my senior year in high school, my uncle got me a job at the Ala Moana Shopping Center, and it was a little store there called the House of Music, and I used to sell a lot of your products there, but that's where I worked there for 5 years, selling ukuleles, selling guitars, selling strings, effect pedals, amplifiers, and in fact,
You're one of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Membership, sign them up.
So,
so
thought. Hey, wait a minute. All right. Before we get started, when you asked me to do this, I was so honored, but you didn't tell me I had to follow Jake. So,
well, we didn't know that.
wow, that was amazing.
Surprise. The whole thing's a surprise. You think we planned this? I mean, come on.
I'll do my best.
You got a drummer up here. Okay, so the idea of the Hal Leonard story is just obviously an amazing story, but you saw the impact that this was going to have. The whole idea of being a game changer is looking around the corner and seeing something that's about to come. How did you approach digital technology with print?
It was an interesting time. This was actually 1997 when we decided to launch the industry's first digital sheet music website with our dealers. So it was kind of a shocking thing to do. In 1997, it was 5 years before iTunes. And we said, you know what, it's going to happen sooner or later. It's not going to be quick, it's going to be long ball. But
most of us were on dial-up with AOL at that point.
Right, yeah, so bandwidth was a problem, technology wasn't there, a lot of things to stop it. But we looked at it and said, it's a logical extension of who we are. I think what drove us is we never defined ourselves as a printer. We defined ourselves as people who create music, and it happens to sit in a book. And today the book is going strong, and we just finished a great year, and so print's here for a long time, but we felt there was an opportunity to do digital. And so there was no technology. We had to go out and find, quirky little things to get it going. And then the other part of it was Hal Leonard has a very strong dealer-centric mentality. It's embedded in all of us. And we've always partnered with our dealers. So we early on said, let's go to our dealers and let's figure out a way to do it. So that began the first digital retailer program.
Welcome back to the program, St. Vincent.
Annie Clark, of course, the world knows who St. Vincent. Does that look like fun playing with David Byrne? Oh, God. All right, Annie, your first time in NAMM.
First time?
What brought you here?
Well, as a matter of fact, funny you ask, I designed a guitar with Ernie Ball.
Real. And you designed your own guitar.
I did.
Thanks for coming. Have a seat. What I think a lot of folks may not know, you've been in, almost 6 months now is, a big runway, but no, you're a guitar guy. I bet they don't know that. Tell us a little about how you started.
I learned on classical guitar. I actually was pretty inspired by Jake's performance this morning because for me, that first 2 years, 3 years, learning on a small scale, nylon-strung instrument made it easy for me to really fall in love with the instrument. And then I graduated, when I went to high school, I graduated into electric guitar. So, I've been in deep on guitar for 50 years. And before I joined Fender, I actually had 40 guitars in my collection before I joined. Now my wife is terrified. We're gonna have to buy a bigger.
Stopping them now.
We're gonna have to buy a bigger house, I
You're
think.
2016 Music for Life Award recipient, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Graham Nash. I'm doing good. Thank you very much. We're gonna take one shot here.
Isn't this a little early for musicians?
I'm so proud
Must
of
be
you.
evolving up from the night
I'm
before.
so proud of you. So you got time to stick around a little bit? Did you
Sure.
stay? Oh, awesome. Thank you. Oh, man.
Look at this pretty.
Welcome to NAMM. I can't remember. Have you been to the show before?
No,
This is your first time. Wow.
I'm a virgin.
Everybody, please behave yourself. Treat him very kindly. This is a big day for us. So I mentioned this is a room full of gear people. We make stuff, we sell stuff, we're crazy about it, but a lot of us are all musicians and still vitally live vicariously through these wonderful artists.
Yeah, the truth is that all the people here are an incredibly important link in the chain of us communicating our music. I mean, you can write as many songs as you want, but without these people out there in the world will never hear it. So I applaud.
Thank you. Thank you very much, you guys. Do you remember your first instrument, first guitar?
Sure.
What was it?
11.
Really?
Yeah, I have no idea whether they still exist anymore. The truth is that, when you get to be as old as I am, you collect a lot of stuff in your life. I'm trying to figure out where my original guitar is that I wrote Teach Your Children and Marrakesh Express on, all those songs. It's out there in the cosmos somewhere. I hope someone is enjoying it.
It's got all that magic in it. So, one of the things, you wrote a really good book, and I really recommend you read the book because there's a lot of business takeaway. And again, these are a lot of business folks, but there's still that magic. And there's one section I just remember where, even before the Hollies, you saw your first American Strat. Because we get caught up in the fact, it's a bunch of strings and wood and supply chain, but it comes out and it's this beautiful instrument, and it affected you.
Very much so. Before we were the Hollies, we were a group called the Four Tones, which is really strange because there were 5 of us. I'm not sure how that happened.
in the member center. Then we've got music making circles happening all day. Ukulele, e-bone, trumpet, harmonica circles. So, you know, if you're tired by then and still need to make more music, join us. So have a great NAMM show, and thank you so much for coming to Anaheim and making the NAMM show successful.
Thank you so much, everybody. Rafael Feliciano on the congas. Joe Pedro in the string section. Corey Tanaka, I'm Jon Hammond. We'll see you down on the floor tomorrow. We'll be all over the place, man. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sheraton Hotel. Justin on the mix. Thanks a lot, Justin. All right.